So this presentation was so long, I broke it up into two parts. Second part is a continuation of learning how to source deals, and then the end will be my best practices for this presentation. So you kind of apply this knowledge in a format and get you more business. And one of the really critical elements of our business is nurturing relationships. So it's connecting with other vendors, other industries, other partnerships that aren't just real estate. Right? Again, at the beginning of the class, we were talking about working with developers. So there's a lot of different facets of development, right? There's a lot of different people that are involved in construction. Expediters, architects, engineers, GCs, trades. These are all super valuable people to be in touch with because they again can inevitably connect you to the owner of the property, or they themselves oftentimes are the developer. So being able to get in contact with one and then put you in touch with the other, it's an ecosystem that you're building up. Landlords, portfolio holders, property managers. Some property management companies are not the full suite. They don't do everything. Sometimes they just strictly do leasing, or sometimes they just strictly do rent collection and everything else. So building a partnership with these rental portfolio managers, sometimes you can get in and do the leasing yourself. And again, leasing isn't super exciting, but it leads to sales. So if you're top of mind to people that are having to lease up these properties, you could get in as the agent because you already know the property and the tenants. These are easy spells. You want to be able to talk to lenders, hard money, banks, REO departments, credit unions, any type of source where money is created from. That's a great avenue to provide projects. Communities are a really big one, like business owners. You can hire bulldogs, right? It's literally cutting somebody cash to go knock on doors for you, or bring you deals. You just get a bit of a percentage of your winnings. That's bird dog, essentially. They're doing the hard part for you. Find the neighborhood captains in that block that they know everybody. RCOs. So RCOs, zoning board meetings, those are really underrated and underutilized avenues to collect clients. Because if you go to a zoning board meeting, everybody in there is trying to change zoning or some kind of use. And a nice percentage of them are people that are doing it for the purposes of making money, not just for their own house. So being able to collect their information, get to know their name, they look like, now you can go solicit as a business assistant. And then the area of the law. So like attorneys, title companies, like everything that is in the corporate of real estate, you want to get to know these different vendors and different parties, not just real estate agents, vendors. Those who have a why to live, bear almost anyhow. So I think DW's like big push is like know your why. Like Gary Keller's all about know your why, know your why. So it's a critical thing that helps you kind of stay consistent, because this is a super important part of this entire presentation. Learning how to stay consistent. You can take everything that I teach you today, but only do it one time, but not having success. So you got to hold yourself accountable. Figure out why you're doing this, so you can wake up every morning and continue to do it, not just push yourself in the direction you're not really sure and never really permanent. Having a why stops you from going. Body language, expertise, and handling objections. These are critical things that folks keep in mind when you're talking about things. Body language is super important. So if you are talking to a difficult property owner or someone you're meeting for the first time, like a developer, you got to, right? I like to pick one eye and look at the one eye, because if you look like, if you watch them watch you and you only look at one of their eyes, they'll go back and forth because they're reading your body language. They're looking at you to see if you're bullshitting. Okay, so body language is important, right? I'm not telling you not to be yourself, but attempt to not be jittery, talk slow, really milk those qualities, right? There's been a lot of studies that people talk with their hands with no trust. This motion Believe it or not, it's a psychological thing. When I'm saying something to you, it kind of makes their head literally just a tip. Mind brain. But it's a psychological thing. When you want someone to be agreeable, you're speaking to them through your body, right? The less sharp movements that I make, the less blanks that I'm doing, you're taking me seriously because I'm trying to be honest with you. And if you can reciprocate and receive that honesty, that is called building trust. This is a great. I'm gonna try to hold off on a lot of these Instagram videos, but this is a really good. This guy's awesome.
Whenever you meet somebody, they are looking at you to see how you
Look at this.
they are asking you, tell me how I should follow. So they're actually looking at you knowing they might work with you. He's explaining, I am not an engineer, looking at him, but he knows what he's talking about. I am going to purchase based on his faith, on what he's saying. So you don't go to the world and ask who you are. You go to the world, reveal who you are. And in order to reveal who you are, you have to know you. You know you, there is faith. And there is faith.
One of the guys. Again, expertise comes from asking good questions and being present in the client's life. So again, we're focusing on development. I want to be actively walking through a potential client's construction site. They're not paying me to do it. There's no guarantee I'm going to get the business, but just showing up means something. It means that you're dedicated like they're dedicated to get that built. The secondest thing I ever got, it took me 8 months. The dude just bought it, demoed the property, and it was like a shell of dirt. I was like, hey, this is the project. Well, there's nothing really to see how high it is. Okay, I'm just curious, I want to see the construction. No problem. Every other week for 8 months, I showed up to that job site. The guy was going to go FISBO. He had no intention. He worked with New Western. So in his mind, the taste of working with a real estate company was like totally out of sight. He just wanted to do it himself. And I was like, I just want to see the progress. Every other week, I came to that site because I know the business is going on. And at the end of that construction, he called me. He's like, hey, I'm curious, what do you think we can sell this for? I was like, oh, we can definitely sell this. He's like, but I want to be able to advertise it too. And instead of arguing with him, asked the question, how are you going to advertise this? Where are you going to advertise this? He took a super long pause and said, what do you mean? And I said, well, what do you mean? Where are you going to actually market the property? I think I'll put it in the newspaper and Craigslist. I said, no problem, let's put it in the contract, you can market it. Because I already knew that the guy was going to do it. And then within a few weeks, I put him under contract because he had no traction and he listened to what I had to say. I didn't even have to sell him because I showed up. So volunteering, going through the process of that construction, you can get to be a part of the decision making for the choices that they're going to use, the layouts that they're going to do. You get to bounce ideas off of the contractors and the sellers, and it just becomes this really symbiotic relationship that organically happens. A lot of the stuff that you do, you want it to organically happen so you can make these relationships. This business really isn't about steps, right? The selling is easy, the contracts you can learn them, but it's about nurturing relationships through and through. So you have to stand for something for someone, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're not a brand, you're just a commodity provider. I don't want to provide a commodity. I want to be a brand that sellers and builders can go to me and say, yeah, I know you're going to deliver because you've done it for somebody else. Objections, they're everywhere. In fact, I really like objections, and you should too. Fit as many objections in the front of your conversations with people as you can so that they run out, right? You want them to be on fumes by the time that you're at the end of the conversation. You don't want to gear up, right? If you feed people fluff at the beginning, then the objections will come at the end when you're fatigued. But if you front load those with objections, then you outwit them, and then it's easier to help.
How do you get them to do that?
I'm about to show you this here. That will answer your question. Two. Oh, okay, great.
It's one of my favorite overcomes for when someone says, I need to think about it, or I need some more time to make the decision. I say, listen, it doesn't take time to make decisions, it takes information. And the problem is, we think that the longer we wait, the more information we're gonna have. But I'm the only source of information that you have to make this decision. So what are your main concerns? And then we can walk through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk fast, but that's very true.
Yeah.
Let them know that you were the only source of information and they don't need more information because you're ready to give them that information on the spot. This guy's also completely awesome. This is a great pricing strategy. So when sellers are fighting you on valuation, they want one price and you're trying to give them another price. Rather, give them strategies and say, here are the pluses and minuses for all of these strategies. Let's choose a good strategy that works for your house, not personally.
And this is Klein, when we price a home, we utilize 3 pricing strategies. It's not what your home's worth, it's how you maximize the range. Strategy number 1 is, we call this aspirational pricing, meaning where the market is. Generally, we go higher than the market, but the main reason for that is it leaves some room for negotiation in a traditional environment. Second thing we do is we call perceived market pricing. It's not fair market value. Fair market value is determined when a transaction is completed. It's called perceived market value. This is called the sticking with perceived market value. We list the home right on what we think the market value is, showing that we are a fair party and we attract fair offers. That allows us to do the best work we can in the negotiation process because we'll stay within that frame. Is we have something called event pricing, which we sometimes tend to price below market, which is our favorite strategy, and it allows to create an auction-like environment to bid the value of the property up.
Look, I started with his hands. So fluid. But I use an exact verbiage when I do listing presentations for the different client, because if they're fighting you on high price, when you know the absorption rate and you're saying, look, the numbers don't lie, right? I always give facts first and my opinions later. So even once you're listed and it's just sitting on the market, we say, hey, I think we're stuck in an event price environment. No, we're stuck in an event priced value in an environment that doesn't jive with what we're trying to do. I think we should try a different pricing strategy. So it's a way of you getting away from your opinion and staying effective.
But isn't there an initial pricing strategy that you propose then?
I always do, but if somebody wants to list higher, they're gonna do what they want. And this is an alternative conversation, not an argument, right? A seller is the expert of their home, but the market comps in general are the data in which you need to price your home, right? The seller, again, is the expert of their home. Let them know that. I know you're the expert of this house, but every active buyer that's walking through your property, they're actually the expert of the market because they've seen a dozen more houses than this one house. You seller, you're not personally going to these other houses, so you don't know. You only know your house and what you see online. So we have to take seriously what the comps are saying based on feedback of buyers, right? Always lead with facts first and think second. Really odd, but I want you to read your heads and I'll read it out loud. You guys trying to be existential. The task is not so much to see what one has done, but to think what nobody has thought yet about that everybody sees. So, reading between the lines, that's saying be creative. Being creative is saying, hey, this is what we typically see in terms of comps. Our pricing strategy is what we do that nobody is realizing what how we're going to attack the market. There's certain phrases that you can usually lean on instead of going down a rabbit hole of trying to justify your process, right? An objection should be met with a response, not like a diatribe of like, oh, I'm stupid. They're sharp with their objections, you're gonna be sharp with your response. I will typically lead on these 3, anybody, so if this is good, if you're in competition with other realtors, so I'm letting them know that, any of the agents can actually list your house, that's not hard, but I'm actually gonna sell your house. And that's signaling that you understand the fundamentals of what is entailed to actually get the job done. A lot of agents use the word confident. I think I'm confident I can get your house sold. I'm confident your house should have sold at this price. I'm certain. I'm letting these sellers know that I'm certain about what I'm talking about based on the facts that I have. And then I'll kind of close them with, some of these agents will try their best, but I'm actually gonna do what's necessary to sell your house. And that's a big one because I'll follow up and I say, like, any agent that says they're gonna do the best to sell a house, your best isn't presented until you actually are put in the moment. So you're over promising something you don't even know if you're gonna deliver. I'm telling you, whatever it takes, I will do to get this job done. You wanna be creative when you're on your listing appointments by saying things differently than other realtors. Most agents use the same pitch, but I want you to double down on, I use creative solutions and I leverage conflict resolution. Because those two things cover a wide berth of the activities that we do as real estate agents. But most homeowners don't know that. So being creative in the moment, dealing with issues and conflicts as they arise, that's 100% necessary. And really double down that, like, this is a social business. There's some really good realtors to work with, and there's some really shitty realtors that are out there. And unfortunately, we have to deal with that. And who knows the other agent you're talking to? Maybe they're not liked in the community. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying you don't know if that agent is liked. I'm telling you, I've built a relationship with all of the agents in our market, and they like to work with me. You may be choosing someone that everybody hates to work with. And that is an underlying variable. You don't know if it's going to affect your inside your house. So, I mean, this quote, it's kind of the same thing. I like to tell homeowners, I don't have an ego when I sell your house. If the agent or buyer on the other end is a jerk, I'm going to deal with it. I'm just going to focus on getting the job done for you. Even if I have to do the job with the other agent, even if I have to fill in some responsibilities for the buyer, I will do it. I'm not going to let my ego get in the way. So, a lot of times when deals go sideways, some agents, they lose their shit. They get aggressive and they have an ego, and they posture, and they want you to know that I'm upset, and here's why I'm upset, but in an aggressive way. So, I mean, this quote kind of like, it's like a joke, but what does it mean to be insulted? Stand by a rock and insult it. What have you accomplished? Right? Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I'm your rock. Okay? No matter what is said or what is done, I will not waver in the responsibilities that I hold. Okay? And then just double down on the negotiation part. You're basically explaining to them that you're an expert in negotiations, and negotiations start when we list the property and it goes all the way through the transaction. So just, you're a creative thinker, you're a conflict resolution specialist, and you're a sharp negotiator. Those three things are power words that let the seller know you actually care about what you're going to do. For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them, right? So I think somebody asked, Martin asked, he's like, well, how do you know how to educate yourself? Some guy said it 3,000+ years ago. You just do it. You just go through the motions of the storm of real estate. Anybody know Dan Penna?
He looks familiar.
Yeah. Dan Penna, you should watch him. He is the most loose cannon, non-filtered entrepreneur.
Dan Penny, son?
Dan Penna. Penna.
He's like my kind of guy.
So he was Elon Musk's business coach. He was Ray Cardone's business coach. He's super intense. Like, he's no filter. And he hates general. He does not hold back and say anything. But this is a really good.
You're 2,000 cold calls. I don't care what industry it is. You're 2,000 cold calls away from being a fucking millionaire. How many times do I have to say it? I've been saying it 28.5 years. But you know what it means to say it? You know what it means to have an insurance handler make a cold call? And that's the fucking truth. You don't want to go home and take your wife, your cousin, your brother, your fucking.
You gotta watch it. That's a snapshot. He's so if you've heard of that restaurant where you go to pay to get like, the wine and like, the
Oh my God.
he is the equivalent to a sales coach. He talks to you really vulgar, but he kind of like pulls it out in the hallway. So, if you want to be entertained. So he's right. Gary Keller says something very similar to this. I don't know if it's 2,000 cold calls, but he's like, your X amount of cold calls, like, you know, which is totally true. It's what a bad goes. This is what it means to be flexible, right? You want to always ask for more, earn trust, and be the go-to for all multi deals, right? Asking for more means if you talk to somebody initially about X property, again, we're talking about investors, developers, if they probably have other stuff going on, don't be shy to ask them, hey, what are the projects you have going on that they can help with? Volunteer, 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 because you stay top of mind. So they may have called you about a single family lot that they're curious about building. Don't be that agent, oh yeah, the asking price is this, and this is the ARV. All right, well, that's the work, click. Hey, what else do you have that's building? I have a lot of customers that work with renters, can I come check out your projects? What do they do? You're not asking to be paid to do that. I always get invited when I ask. So they may have a project that they're midway through that, they just blew up the relationship with their realtor. Right? I never want you guys to get discouraged for door knocking construction sites because you think that they already have somebody hired at the other end. Just because an agent sells them that lot or that deal, that there's no solidified agreement that they're going to work with that same person. I work with a lot of builders that have hired me just because I stay consistent in talking with them. Earning trust. You kind of got to be a cowboy. I'm not advocating for you to ever give up commission or put your commission in jeopardy when they lose it, but flexibility, it's a bold risk, and sometimes it can be very lucrative to take a bold risk. Plenty of times I've had to just, again, swallow my pride and say, you know what, I'll leave my commission on the table so the deal will close now, and then get reimbursed either on the back end or at a later date. Or if I have both sides, a portion of something is better than nothing for all that time spent. So, I had an $800,000 deal last year where it was 2 lots in a framed out house, and they were building it. The seller was delinquent, it was foreclosed, I was representing the buyer, but it came out at the end that there was like $10,000 in delinquent taxes. The seller had no more money. The bank was not giving up anything. It was like trying to squeeze water out of the rock. And the buyers were like, it's not our responsibility. So everyone always looks at the realtor, hey, you got bag cash, you shouldn't pay it from there. Just forking up 10 grand. They're like, why spend 3 months on this deal? That's my money, I gave up the 10 grand so I could get, the $2 million of bills when they're done. So you're taking a risk to forge a relationship. And if you are doing something that bold with a client, then they have faith in you that you actually care about the project. So they're least likely to say, you know what, you sell it to us, you're giving up that commission, we're gonna go somebody else to resell it. Come on. You're all in with them. Again, I'm not advocating that you do this, but what are you gonna do?
You didn't sign like a contract with them to say that they had to use you for the next?
You absolutely can, you have you post data.
Be like, if I give up my commission now, this means that.
Isn't that kind of like a little like, you're like asking for something in return, like it's good if you just take the leap of faith, like listen man, like I wanna help you close.
I want the opportunity to help you resell these properties. I am so in on this project that I'm willing to help you get to the closing table.
Yeah.
And no more money out of pocket from your down payment.
Yeah.
I'll cover the difference. Is that fair?
Yeah.
That's more so, I'll do it only if you give me the list.
Yeah,
It's not what you say, it's how you say
yeah,
it.
yeah,
We said the same thing, but we said it differently,
yeah.
right?
You said it like you're looking out for us.
And then that's the truth. If you can be your most authentic self in an honest capacity, you can do a lot of things. But you have to mean it.
But that's not the only way you're gonna trust, though. It's not
No.
the deal. Yeah.
But money talks, They say money talks, bullshit walks. I had another one that just closed, and again, the extra transfer tax popped out of nowhere. The lender and the title company dropped the ball, and for the back money, he has the bills. So instead of me fighting on the amount that the buyer wanted, I said, I'll tell you what. I'm in the deal, you're in the deal, your lender's in the deal. Let's do it 3 ways. Chop it, pay a third of it. And I convinced the lender to pay the third, and the buyer to pay the third. He still felt like he won, and I didn't have to give up the other 2/3, right? That's being flexible, that's gonna be good. And just fucking rocking the off-market deals. You know, let me tell you something, Facebook Marketplace, that place is locked. This is final shit, a lot of fraud, but there's some real deals that you could do. I love posting deals on, Marketplace, and I love looking for deals, because you can at least get connected. Marketplace is like the new Craigslist, in my opinion. So Craigslist is just flooded with,
Scams.
scams and like realtors pretending to be physicals. So, and you have to pay for it now, it's weird. So Facebook Marketplace is like the new Craigslist, and that's one avenue for all market deals. Connecting with really good wholesalers, there's maybe 10 legitimate ones in the entire city, and thousands. So they're a great resource for good off-market deals. Keeping in touch with property owners, again, you connecting with a property owner to earn their business doesn't mean that you have to force them to give you a listing now. Hey, I know you have intention to sell this. If I can bring you a buyer, would you be open to paying me a commission or fee for service and selling the property? Yes, great. Now I have this reservoir of off-market deals that don't have to be advertised, don't have to spend marketing dollars, but I have them in my back pocket when I'm talking to people that are looking for deals. Your mindset. I mean, like I was saying, commissions are a byproduct of what we do. The real currency that we're trading is value. I'm giving you value, in return, you're giving me a different kind of value. So it's not necessarily trading, but it's a natural course of events that happens. You gotta have your elevator pitch ready at all times. An elevator pitch is like a 15-second clip, who you are, why you're at it. You know, I love to work with developers, so I've done a lot of pre-sales in my career. Pre-sales nowadays are tough because there's so much inventory in the market, and it doesn't really make sense to list a pre-sale. However, if I'm talking to you cold as a developer, I'm gonna pitch you on pre-selling it, because I'm explaining to you that we can sell upgrades, so you're gonna make more money, and if we get under contract prior to you finishing it, you're gonna close immediately, so you reduce your holding costs and increase your margins. Just that, they're like, oh, like the way that sounds. Come check out the project, see what you can do. Even if you don't even pre-sell it, you've kind of locked them in, that you can think creatively, you're motivated, you're hungry, you're a hustler, and you're like in the market, okay?
Hey, Rich, isn't that kind of like, I mean, essentially you did, whether you're actually listening or not, I would assume it'd be advantageous to kind of, like you said, you're checking on the project, maybe you're posting photos like, hey, this one's coming soon, or whatever.
That's a great way to win out-of-state investors.
Yeah,
Because they're hoping that the contractors will deliver for them. And, you know, people in New York and Miami, they'll come once a week. Well, someone who's local that owns that property, they're gonna come every day. So I volunteer again, hey, part of my service in North Truck, I'm actually gonna go check on that property routinely, sending photos and updates, talk to contractors. Because I care about what type of finishes and the layouts that they do, because I'm the one that is selling it at the end. Not the contractor. The contractor is gonna be fucking done on the next project. They don't care. Seller cares. I care. So I want him to know, or she to know, that I care about how the build is going. And I can send them updates so that they can rag on the GCs or the architects for not doing it correctly. And again, that builds rapport, that builds trust. And it helps me get involved with the construction parts of it. Like you're saying, you can give the market updates to consumers.
If you don't mind, right, you said the 15-second elevator pitch. Hypothetically, let's say I'm a hypothetical investor, you met me in the elevator, what's your pitch?
So I'm gonna be honest with you, it changes every time. It changes based on the nature of
Your community.
meeting.
Okay.
So I think memorizing scripts is really good, and I'm not avoiding to answer your question or
Yeah.
that pitch, but it's so circumstantial, it's gotta be fluid in the moment, because then it comes off authentic. If you are salesy, you're cold, people can tell.
You met me here, let's say, here and now, just give me something.
I can put this on. Yeah,
How many,
give me a scenario, so
you met me here, I walked on Broad Street, you walked out of the brokerage, you met me, we struck up a conversation, you told me you're in real estate, I told you I'm developing a couple projects in Northeast Philly. Where you, Northeast Philly,
okay.
you, or whatever, let's say an area you're the expert in, I don't know where you do your business. What's your thing? Oh. After that, where do you go with that?
I said, hey, congrats on the project. Can you tell me about your experience with the other realtor real quick? I'm just curious.
Okay, and then,
Blah, blah, blah. If they complain, yeah, perfect. They're not committed. Oh, you know what? That's crazy. If I was in that situation, I would have done X, Y, Z. Right?
Okay.
Now I'm giving them my expertise without saying, I'm an awesome realtor, I'll do a good job. And then I'll ask them, hey, you know, what are your intentions with the project? Are you planning to rent it out? What's the level of construction? I'm just curious. You know, I got a lot of action that's only going on in that specific area. I'd love to help. You tell me about the project, right? If it's gonna be a rental, I'd say, okay, cool. You know, by the time that you get to the drywall stage, or at least you have installed the countertop, let me help you out. Let me try to see if I can pre-lease it so that when you're done and you've got your rental license, you already have a lease on it. Or if you're gonna resell it, yeah, I'll tell you what, I work with a lot of contractors, so I'm very familiar with the construction phases, timelines. If you're telling me that you're demoing it tomorrow, you're probably not gonna be on the market for 6.5 months. Let me help you work with your architect. I'll come up with a couple of ideas that may maximize your profit. We'll walk the project together. You know, no pressure to work with me. I'm so involved in real estate in that area. I wanna help you get a buyer quick. Let's go check out the project. You're gonna tell me no, probably not.
no, I'm listening to you.
Press hard, you know? Just got a listing right there. Henry David Thoreau, he's like an old school philosopher, he's really big into nature. He's one of my favorite philosophers, but this is a super true, you know, one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life which they have imagined, you will meet with the success unexpected and common in life. That is the exact scenario that we just gave. We bump into the street with each other. I'm so passionate about selling real estate that my elevator pitch isn't even a pitch, it's just me telling you how I'm gonna help you. So, work hard to be honest, I don't know, but this is somehow connected.
You're willing to do the legwork without like.
I'm willing to run the distance without knowing,
Right,
right?
man, right?
This is kind of my elevator pitch, in a sense, you know, so many times, look at this thing, it's cool. This is what it thought.
This can.
Sounds like a crumbled up cigarette. But she seems interested. Alright, so. Tracking your numbers is super important. You wanna know your numbers. Through and through. So, on average, when I work with somebody who's reasonable and will allow me to price the property correctly, on average, I'm getting you 98 to 105% of the asking price. That's a really important one when you start to have hence conversations about commissions. They're worried about what's coming out of their pocket rather than what's going into their pocket. So if I'm telling them, hey, I'm actually gonna get you over what you're asking, that covers the difference in what we're talking about in terms of commission. So that's a good objection handler right there. I use the pricing strategies the guy talked about in the video. I mean, they're so pointed and so good that they really describe every potential outcome for what you could price at home at. And then I set expectations. I always set expectations. No surprises. I like a well-informed, well-funded, motivated person. People get motivated once they're well-informed. I set the expectation from day one, so there's no surprise. People know what they're getting. Couple tips. You know, Melissa, by the way, she is our social media manager for the team. If you're finding this informative, we implore you to advertise this on your Instagram, put a story, get a quick picture, tag us at Rich Cassell. Putting yourself out there is also another avenue of expertise. We're just talking about things in general that you do on a daily basis. people listen, because everybody is involved in real estate, but to a certain extent. So if I'm a homeowner, I'm selling a house for the first time, I own a house, but I don't know anything about real estate, so I'm hiring a realtor. If you're putting yourself out there about your level of knowledge about selling a house, that's how we can kind of leverage a social media algorithm to connect to this person. So she's learning this for the first time, but I want to kind of, you know, market in which a way where it triggers a gambling mindset for somebody. Gambling is like an addictive thing, so I want people to almost be addicted to the services that I offer, so they want me more than I want them. It's like the best kind of relationship in sales. So something that is an opportunity for value, unpredicted rewards, quick repeatability, and I can repeat that behavior. So that's like the mindset of a gambler. And if you can tap into marketing or an advertising piece with that kind of like underlying theme, you get more clicks. Really talking about that. Surprise. And sometimes, so when we go to listing appointments, I always like, I'm gonna go to this, like, I like to ask, like, hey, are you gonna be doing any work to your house? And if somebody says yes, but I have to call my insurance provider because something happened and I don't wanna lay that money out for insurance, this is a really good tip for a homeowner. So insurance adjusters, dicks, right? Their job is to make sure you get the least amount of money, when in return, you want the maximum amount of money if you're paying for that policy. So if an insurance adjuster ever says, you know, like they deny you for that, you can go to them and you can say, all right, I'm gonna talk to the state insurance commissioner this afternoon and see what he has to say about it. Change so fast. They don't want the commissioner writing down on them saying, why are you trying to defraud policy? So little pro tip. So if they feel discouraged that they're not sure they can get the max dollar for the repair, say, hey, you know, use this verbiage. Again, this is not me saying I'm the best, just like house. This is you giving value about and really just trying to your expertise without having to do it. It's all inception. Oh yeah. Don't wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking. So true. Is everybody know David Goggins? That's fucking nuts. But this is a great concept of letting yourself know when you have actually made something like where you want to be.
If you want to be great, you want to be the best ever at what you do, you're going to be misunderstood by everybody. Because you're going to be so obsessed and so driven to get there. That's what it takes.
That's true.
It takes every second of your life. You guys said balance. Yeah, balance is important for a lot of people. It is. If you want to go to that edge where people do not like you, don't understand you, question everything you do, you rock.
Wait, what was that guy's name? What was that guy's name?
David Goggins.
David Goggins?
He is a force figure. That dude used to be like 300 pounds. Yeah. I mean, he's run multiple 100-mile marathons by himself.
100 miles? He's the only guy, he's the only guy he completed
The
3 whole weeks in Navy SEAL and completed Army Radio.
These are good objection tactics. These are primarily for listing appointments. This one might be outdated only because the laws have changed and now people are saying, hey, I don't want to pay the other realtor because I don't have to because of the default suit. Whenever I'm talking to a new owner or a new buyer, I will take the time, give them the value, and explain to them, hey, are you familiar with the laws that just changed back last year in August? No. Or does it have to do with the commission? Yes, I know. Right? And then I'll explain to them 3 specific things so that they are well informed so they can make an educated decision based on information. This is a good one. So again, there's a lot of shitty realtors out there and consumers sometimes experience that. This kind of goes to what the pitch was. I always like to find out how people's experiences were with realtors, because that will give me an idea how they think of real estate agents and how I can change their mentality. Everybody thinks a realtor is like a slimy car salesman. That's not true.
What do you mean slang first? Oh, you'll find out. I'm trying to say about this.
A lot of things. You always want to hear them out, reaffirm what they just said, and then give them your point of view. So let them vent. This, I mean, she hates when I'm on the phone for 30 minutes where people just complain about something else. I'll let them vent. People complain to others who they trust. So it's just a trust building. I can put you on mute and do work and do something else. You know, let you talk. People love to talk about this. Let them talk. And when it's my turn, gauge, saying, oh, you know, I break it down for them all these scenarios of like how I would handle it. Because again, that's not me telling them, it's me explaining to them like, hey, this is how I would represent you. Using words or using phrases like, you know, how can I, like, if they're arguing me about the price, I'm gonna say, how can I present the concept differently so you can see the upside of using this price strategy? The other half of the phone for sales have done the hard part. So like homes that are overpriced for listing presentations, like when I'm using the comps, I'll do active, under contract, and closed. Because I'll reference like, hey, they're listed at the same price you want to list at, but they're 100 days on market. Like they did the hard work for us. They proved to you that that price is worth it. Objections, objections, objections. This is a good one to keep in mind when you're negotiating, because it's true. Fair means one side got exactly what they wanted in such a way where the other side can't quite confirm it. So when the one party is saying, is that fair? You have the upper hand. You always want to have a slightly upper hand and have persuaded them to kind of go with your recommendation. So this is like your kind of to-do list, you know, your homework in a sense of how to take the next steps based on everything I've told you so that you can take action in a consistent manner. You want to build your ideal client profile. You want to audit your network to see if any of these people that you know already fit that bill. You know, man's not the greatest. But it's really, really useful for specific things, i.e. tracking your numbers. You can actually set your annual goals on command, and it will tell you based on how much volume you want to do, how many transactions you want to do, how many calls you have to make, how many appointments you have to go on, and how many deals you have to put under contract. To me, that's probably the most valuable aspect of command that you can use, because you don't have to come up with this crazy spreadsheet, right? It actually spits it out for you.
What do you use instead of command?
For what?
For like CRM?
I got suckered into using follow-ups. Zillow forced me to use follow-ups. It's pretty good. Go talk to trades, go talk to vendors, go talk to the ecosystem that you have created in terms of law, construction, community, and finance. Go talk to them. Go meet with them. Go be with them. Absorb their knowledge. Absorb their information. This is mine. You have to have like this unwavering, optimistic hunger all the time. You have to push yourself. It's unacceptable to plateau the following year in sales. You actually can't do the same amount you did last year because you're actually doing less. Every year you should be growing, which means you have to hold yourself accountable to consistent actions, to consistent behaviors. Okay? For the gym, for example, let's say you go consistently every day and you miss one day. That's an accident. You miss it 2 days in a row, that's the form of a new behavior. And that can crescendo to the rest of your life. You prospect every single day, you miss one day because whatever happened. Okay, get back to the next day. But if you miss the second time in a row, you are starting to unaware of your own self-conscious that you are starting a new behavior. So that's bad behavior, right? Habits are good because you don't have to think about them, and they're also bad because you don't have to think about them. You kind of get locked into this rhythm. So be conscious of your behaviors. It's another good one, right? When you're under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you actually sink to the level of your training. Your training is critical, right? All these elements, you have to continuously be well. Jocko.
Motivations, the feeling that comes with those, and it doesn't matter whether it's there or not, discipline is infinitely more important. No matter how you feel, get up and do what you're supposed to do. That's it. That's discipline. It's not motivation. If you only did what you were supposed to do, when you were doing, you're the best way to get a chance. But if you're disciplined, you go do what you're supposed to do. That's the way it works.
Preach. What's a good one by David Bowie? Everybody knows David Bowie.
Yeah, they are excited. It's something, not working, always trying to do stuff that I'm seeing. Just that I'm not supposed to be something.
That means if you're only comfortable in residential real estate, keep yourself about commercial real estate. If you're only doing land sales, think about multifamily development. Everything you do, you should create this like life cycle of transaction. This is my personal step-by-step guide to a listing presentation. Do it what you will, make it your own, but these are practices that I found really work. Most agents I found when I talk to them, they set a listing appointment, they don't talk to that seller again until they actually meet them. And that's the biggest mistake that you could ever make, because your objective is to sell them on yourself before you even get to the listing presentation, and you're treating the listing presentation as a strict formality that you already have the business and you're going to decide, not to win them over. If you're waiting to win them over by the time you get to the listing presentation, it's over. You don't know if you're talking to the realtors, you don't know where their head's at, they don't know, you gotta trust you, right? You gotta break that bridge, or you gotta break that distrust and build that bridge of trust as quickly as possible prior to meeting. That's touching points, right? You typically have to talk to a seller 10 to 12 times before you sign them. That's totally accurate, right? And if you're saying to yourself, well, I don't know what to say to them, those 10 to 12 times, these are all different points that you can bring to their attention prior to even meeting them, right? You need to make them feel so comfortable with you before you get there that, again, you should treat listing appointments like they're a formality. You already have a business. You're not going there to sell them. The sales already happens, right? With text messages, emails, and phone calls. You gotta get that over quick. I'm not a fan of law enforcement. I think I guess somebody, if you have law enforcement, your family, whatever. But they have a really good mentality. They act as the authority, even though they're a public servant, right? You are a public servant, you're serving the public, but you're getting to that house because you're the authority, which is why they called you. So you have to act as the authority the whole time. You gotta think like a cop. When you get pulled over, even though, again, they're a public servant, they're serving you, they have to respect and not trample on your rights. You're still like, this is my travel. I'm the law. That's how you have to treat the listing presentation. The moment you walk in there, you have to give them directives. You have to put them to work. If you keep them busy doing something, then they're thinking of you as the authority. So I go in there with a pad of paper and I say, hey, nice to meet you, we want to chit chat in the front court or whatever. And I say, hey, why don't you give me the down tour? Give me the tour of your house. Let's go look at it before we sit down and talk about the house. I'll give them the pad of paper and say, I want you to write down 10 things you love about your house and 10 things you hate about yourself.
That's a good one.
10 things that you hate about the house. And what we're going to do with it is we're going to add those 10 things so we know what to advertise, and we'll leave out the 10 things you hate so we're not pointing out those things, right? Right off the bat, you're already helping them. You're looking out for them. So it's keeping them busy as we're walking. I'm asking them questions about the house, like, hey, I'm looking at this as the eye of the buyer before we get into the comps. I'm looking at cracks in the ceilings, the tile, the door jambs, the windows. I don't care so much about the paint colors and all those things. I wanna make sure that your house is solid. So I'll ask them questions and point things out that they may not even be aware of or hoping nobody else would see. And then leverage that when we're talking about the price guide. So by the time we get to the table, I've already warmed them up, kind of know what they like about the house, what they don't like about the house, because I don't want to sell them on how I'll sell somebody else a feature that they might hate themselves. So I make them get homework for me. Also, always ask if they have kids and pets, right? That's really important. You want to be prepared to have cats smell, but more importantly, children and pets are an extension of that property owner, right? Right now, we're moving away from investors and we're talking about retail sellers. Children and pets are an extension of this homeowners. You gotta show those things love, okay? Authentically, you gotta pet that pet, you gotta, hey, if they have a kid, maybe draw a coloring book or something. You gotta show that you actually care about their family so that they feel good about working with you, right? You can get a good vibe from the pet, and kids and pets, it's a good sign. So in order, I like to talk about the comps first, because get the hard part out of the way, right? Eat that frog, go over the numbers. Facts first, opinion second. Then we talk about pricing strategy and market analysis, because you have to kind of get them to agree on a price that makes sense, and then we talk about the market, right? You got to use the fact. So you're just leveraging, hey, if you push back on pricing, you're saying, well, similar house, originally listed for that price was on the market for X days. Part of these initial conversations you have before you meet them, you're identifying their motivation so you can customize the pricing strategy. Because if they're like, well, you don't have to move for a year, they're probably going to be less flexible on price. But if they just got a new job and they have to relocate for the next 2 months, there's a level of motivation you can tap into. Always ask for the no. They sound counterintuitive, but get them to say no. It leads to a yes. So if they want to overprice their house by X, you're like, hey, you've identified to me that you don't have the time or resources to make these necessary repairs, and the condition is less quality than a house that's sold for $30,000 less. Does it make sense for you to sell, or does it make sense for you to list your house 30,000 over that one? Let them say no. If you have to force somebody to know, they're least likely to go with your recommendation. Nobody wants to be wrong. So let them say no. So it's easier for you to agree with them. Whenever they say no, agree with them. I totally agree with you that it doesn't make sense to overprice by 30,000 based on the condition. So if you're comfortable with this listing price, you're ready to talk about the marketing, lead them down the path. Remain the authority. And working with buyers is tough because your objective is to get the house for the least amount of money as possible, which ultimately affects your bottom line. But working with a seller, your goals are aligned. You have to reaffirm that to them, saying, I also want to sell the house for the most amount of money possible because it benefits me as well. So you have to trust me that this marketing strategy and this pricing evaluation will lead you to that. I like to bring an agreement of sale with me when I go on listing presentations too, because you can't account for every home seller to have knowledge of an updated agreement of sale. I like to bring it to them and say, hey, this is the offer that we're going to receive. Or this is the contract we're going to receive when we start to field offers for you. Let's fill out an ideal offer for you. What is an ideal offer term? Blah, blah, blah. I want them to get comfortable with that contract. Then I can take those offer terms and I can use that when I'm negotiating.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's in the seller's head, right? Everybody has their own agendas. But if they can put on paper up front what they're willing to live with, I can use that because maybe they're flexible on a longer due diligence period for a shorter settlement, right? And as human psychology is, even though you've hired me to sell your house, you're still a stranger to me. And you may not have the best interest at heart regardless of any fiduciary responsibility in the contract. So their response to you of like, hey, we got this offer, how do you want me to counter? It may actually be different than their initial agreement that they wrote out. So they're in a vulnerable state when I'm doing this listing presentation, and they're showing me their cards. And then take those cards and use that to negotiate other potential offers. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. If they're talking to other realtors, you know, unlikely that they have allegiance to somebody else with their family. So I pose the question, what's more important to you? Selling the house for the top dollar or hiring? They want to get this house sold for top dollar. I agree with you. This pricing strategy, this pricing valuation, the marketing package you presented to you will do that. The other realtor presented that to you? Probably not. And if you really want to go above and beyond, and you're against other realtors, I'll go into the inventory tab, public records, and I'll create a map of all of my sold listings or deals. It had the scale of the map is in proportion to how good the other realtor is. And then I'll say, hey, you know, I'm not going to reach out to the realtor. Would you feel comfortable sharing that realtor's name with me? I'll do the hard work for you. You know, you want an agent that has sold the most homes. Is that a fair statement? Yes, it's fair. Fair statement. I have the upper hand. They'll say yes, right? So you persuade them to give you the other realtor's information. I look up the other realtor and I build a map. I'm gonna make it more in favor of myself. Let's say I'm a brand new agent. Fucking sales. You are at one of the top brokerages in the entire state. Therefore, the sales of the brokerage are part of your ecosystem. Okay? You can leverage those sales and say, look, our team sold more than this other realtor. That visual, that map, ding, 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 two things, that makes a statement.
I used that in the past, and what they saw was, I don't care about your brokerage or your team, I want to know what you did, and at the time I had like 6 sales.
It does happen, and one of the, I've heard people deal with that, and it's like, hey, you know, I have fewer sales, but which means I have more attention for your listing. Did you use that?
I think I did, yeah, I was gonna say something like, I was more hungry, more attention, more time to put for your listing.
Did you get it?
What happened was he went back to the same agent and used the price that I recommended, and they got me sold.
But you were honest about the price.
Yeah.
So you also would have gotten sold too.
Yeah.
Never give false impressions to a client just to get the deal, because you're ultimately gonna get fired anyway.
Yeah.
And that is the opposite direction of how you want to take your reputation. But it makes you feel good that you priced it correctly.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
You don't mind me asking this, so I'll just throw this out there, because I just met you. What do you think is the one thing that makes you like successful in real estate? What is like your one thing that you're like, this is like my strength, or like what I focus on, or whatever? Like, what's your thing?
I have levels.
Yeah,
Okay.
Don't stop.
Great.
I would say that too.
Okay.
I'll chase you for years, and I have. I don't care if it's one deal or more. It's not, that one deal is not important to me anymore. It is the behavior. I love to negotiate. So, phone companies, restaurants. I don't never say yes the first time. I always ask. Because it's not about getting that thing. It's about getting sharp. It's about training myself to, in that moment, I'm still going to ask. I'm still going to negotiate. It's just not taking no for an answer.
You go the distance, you go further than the competition. There you go.
They don't hear my friends. Closing. So, always sign advantageous. Don't walk away because it gives them time to think. You know, you want them to think that you want them to be sold already. So these are good closers to just get them. There's something I thought about for when you're competing with like a team agent. You know how sometimes like it'll be a big name team agent. You can show your sales on your map and then say, well, they have 10 people. That's why, you know, And then I'll ask them, are you hiring?
Yeah, at least.
And I'll ask them, are you hiring a team leader? Do you know if you're actually getting a team leader or you're getting a grunt?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be
If you're not getting a
surprised,
grunt with me, you're getting me.
you'd be surprised if you search someone on Zillow and they're in a team, there'll be no transactions, the team takes
Yeah.
the credit, so it's like, hey, look at mine and look at theirs, I'm like, who do you wanna hire? That suits you.
I don't even use
Get the job done.
pendings after under contract. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to show them, I just have more of my money.
For one success.
Yeah. I think about this every day. Everybody know Bob Proctor is? No. This dude is a wise man.
If you're not willing to do more than you're being paid for, you'll never be paid for one of your money. Giving is one of the laws of the universe. You've got to willfully give and graciously receive. And you have to think before you give your trading, you're not giving.
Preach. What? Yeah, I was gonna do one more thing, I was gonna do like a meditation, segment, so. If you like this presentation, DM me on Instagram and I will send it to you.
Oh, what's your name on Instagram?
My Philly Castle.
My Philly Castle?
Yep,
Now,
Like your last name, but sounds like Castle?
they're in a castle on your turn.
That's one.
I already came up with my own, like, real estate
should.
name on Instagram.
That's exciting.
My name's Victoria, so I'm calling it Victory in
Real
Realty.
estate. Wait,
Victory in Realty,
okay,
Oh, I like that.
different. They'll steal it.
didn't hear it.
I stole
That is the presentation, I hope you guys found value in that, feel free to comment.